Hey, hello class. Today we're gonna be working on Vieta's formulas. Yeah. So first question is, how many of y'all have some experience with quadratic formulas? Yeah, Nate, can you tell me what? Sorry, not quadratic formulas, quadratic equations. And Nate, can you tell me what a quadratic equation is? Yeah, so a quadratic equation is just the equation with the um, with the term ax squared somewhere in it, right? And it has to be equal to another value, hence the word equation. Okay, so this right here, it doesn't have the ax squared term in it, but since it has x right here and x right here, those two multiply to get x squared, right? So this is a quadratic equation. So let's look at the problem. It's telling us to expand 0 equals x minus r1 times x minus r2. So does anyone notice anything about these two expressions in these parentheses? Yeah, that's correct. So these are roots of a quadratic equation, right? So if we were to graph this, right, r1 would be one of the roots and r2 would be the second one. So let me draw a little picture of that. So yeah, text highlighter, text highlight, line. So let's see. So if I have this is my graph here, right? And then I have a quadratic equation. Oh no, it's a pen. Okay, so I got the pen tool. So I got a pen. Wait, is this not working? Fixed with. Yeah. Okay. So I'll use the pen tool. So let's take a look at this graph, right? So this is my quadratic equation. This is my quadratic, right? And it's also known as like a parabola. So if I were to do set y equals x minus r1, x minus r2, this could be one of the graphs that depicts that. But we're setting it to 0. So that means since y equals 0, these are going to be called the roots. So let's say this is like 2, and let's say this is like -5, right? One of these r1s is going to be 2, another one's going to be -5. Okay? So what's next? So now it wants us to expand this equation, right? And we don't need to do anything on the left side, so that's good. So yeah, so I have a question for you guys. So how would we expand this expression on the right side? Let's think about that. Okay, right. So one common thing that people do in math class, and I sort of agree with them, is that for these like two element multiplications, right? We have one element, two elements on each one. You just do this one with this one. You do the outside first, the first. So that's going to be x squared, and then you do the inside, and then you do the outside, and then you do the last. So let's go over this real quick. So what's going to be the first one? So the first one is going to be x squared, right? So Jack, what's going to be the outside? So pay attention to the negative sign, right? So this one is positive, but this one is negative because it's minus r2. So I'm going to write x, right? So x times minus r2 is x. It's going to be negative x r2. And don't really know how to type I think it's like control minus to get a 2. No, it doesn't do that. Control minus plus. No. Okay, so I'll just do R2, right? Do like a little parentheses instead of the subscript. Right. So the next one is gonna be the inside. So this is gonna be the inside is minus R1 times x, and keep in mind there's a negative sign, right? So what's gonna be that one? Yes, so it's gonna be minus x R1, right? And now we're gonna do the last one. So this is gonna be the end, the last, right? So minus R1 times minus R2, right? So James, what's gonna be minus R1 times minus R2? See, the negative signs cancel out, and you just get R1, R2. Okay, so let's factor out the x in the second and third term. So we get x squared. Oh, yeah, we forgot to write the 0 equals. But 0 equals x squared minus R1 plus R2, right? R1 plus R2, because both of those are negative. R2 x, right? Because there's an x in both. Then plus R1 R2. So notice, let's note a couple of things here. So, James, what do you notice about this second term? Or what do you notice about this formula in general? Particularly this second term and the third term, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. So the second term, it has the inverse, or the negative version of the sum of the two roots, R1 and R2, right? And next, what do you notice about this last term, right? Yeah, it has the product of R1, R2, right? So basically, this is going to be the, set another text box here, right? So, oh, this is the wrong button. So this is going to be the this is going to be the sum, right? So this is the sum, or I guess you can say inverse sum. And then the R1, R2, this is going to be the product, or yeah, so product is basically like two numbers multiplied together. So we're going to put that over here. So that's about it for the first slide. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. So it says, let R1 and R2 be the roots of the quadratic ax squared plus bx plus c. Then R1 plus R2 equals blank, and R1, R2 equals blank. So this is the sum of R1, R2. And James, what is going to be, what does this mean? Yeah, it's going to be the product of R1, R2, or the product of the roots, right? So what should we do? So the first thing that let's write down what we know, okay? So we know the roots formula for how to find the roots, right? So 0 equals a, right? So pay attention. So what did we do last time? So we did x minus R1 times x minus R2. 0 equals x minus R1, x minus R2, right? In this one. But notice that there's no a value here. So we need to put an a value. That way, when we multiply this out, right? We're going to have a value at the front that's going to be applied to all of these. Right, so we got an a value, a times x minus r1 times x minus r2, and that's going to be the only way that we can get an a value onto the ax squared, right? So 0 equals a x minus r1 times x minus r2, which is also equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. And I'm going to make this text box a bit bigger. Right, so that's what we got. So next thing we're going to do, right, okay, so let's see what we should do next. So we can look at the previous slide here. So x squared minus 0 equals x squared minus r1 plus r2 x plus 1 r1 r2. So this is the inverse sum and this is the product. But notice that there is no a value here. So what do we need to do on this equation? How do we get rid of this a? This a and like this second expression right here. Alright, so what we do, we need to divide it all by a. So a 0 equals x minus r1 x minus r2 equals what, James? Yeah, so it's gonna be x squared over a plus, oh wait, so x squared, we're going to leave that alone because it already had an a, so we need to divide by a, all we get is x squared plus b over ax plus c over a, right? This is all equivalent. So the next, this is all equal, and all we did was divide by a on all of them, right? Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna replace this over here with this, right? So we're gonna replace this second part with this, because these are the same, right? X minus r1, x minus r2 is the same as up here. Right, so we're just going to rewrite that. So 0 equals x squared minus r1 plus r2 times x plus r1 r2. Right, so that's just copied from over here, is equal to x squared plus b over a times x plus c over a. So now we have the x squared term. Okay, so let's see, James, what do you think we should do next? You're trying to find the r1, the sum of the roots, and the product of the roots, right? Yeah, that's correct. So this is the sum of the roots here, and this is the product here, right? And we can just look at the different x values, right? So this one's x squared. So we can kind of ignore both of those because they don't have a product or a sum, right? So this next term is negative r1 plus r2, right? So negative r1 plus r2 x equals b over ax, b over a times x, right? Since we subtracted x squared from both sides. And then the next one, r1, r2, what would that be equal to? R1, R2 equals what? James. So yeah, so that one is going to be equal to the constant term, C over A, right? Because we've taken out the quadratic term, the x squared term, the x term, which is the linear term, right? So yeah, so we got R1, R2 equals C over A. That's the answer right here, right? So let's write that. C over A. And then negative R1, R2x equals B over A times x, right? So for that, first thing we should do is take out the x on both sides, right? So we just divide by x. So negative R1 plus R2 equals B over A. And then we just multiply both sides by negative 1. So that gives us negative B over A. Wrong term. That gives us negative B over A. So yeah, thank you for joining me in the first part of my lesson, and see you next time.